Have you always been big into fashion?
Yeah, so I knew like from let's see, probably like eighth grade, I knew I wanted to do something in the fashion industry. I didn't know what, but I've definitely always been inspired and always been up to date with all the latest trends.
Was it was there someone that introduced you to fashion, or how did you even find it as an interest?
Um, honestly, there wasn't someone in specific that turned me on to fashion. I think I just like the idea of looking clean, and wearing cool things. But my brother, he was the one that actually turned me onto the idea of reselling, which we can get to into that later. But definitely my brother for some inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into it. I want to hear you like we can just move through it step by step, like
Okay.
because I'm curious about. I like fashion. I'm not like I would not say I even dress that nice, but fashion is like cool to me. But reselling, I know is popular. When I was in high school, like I resold a few clothes. I used to like go to like Ross and like Value Village, and
Yeah,
like
for sure.
find some
Some
cool
retail
stuff.
arbitrage.
Yeah. So
Heck
like,
yeah.
how old were you when you started reselling clothes?
So I was 14 years old when I started reselling clothing. So uh, pretty much at 14 years old and where I was located in my current situation, there wasn't really any jobs for me, and you had to be 15 to get your worker's permit. And or I should say, I think you get it at 14, but most places, if any, they start hiring at 15, maybe 16. Um, Hold on one second, actually. I'm just gonna mute this. So there we go. Turn on Do Not Disturb. So pretty much, when I was 14, I would go to Goodwills, local thrift stores, Salvation Armies, and I would look for modern jackets. That's what I really started with. I believe I saw it from a YouTube video. I want to say, but you used to be able to buy these jackets from anywhere from like $2 to $5, and then I would sell them on eBay from anywhere from $20 to $30.
What's a
So
modern
I, it,
jacket?
so I should say like modern era. So like within the past 10 years or so, not necessarily vintage. So I started off just selling really any clothing.
Gotcha.
Um, and then so after I did that, I was making anywhere from like 70 to 100 so bucks a week. It was pretty good at 14.
Yeah,
And
dude. You're
then
probably thinking you're rich at 14.
oh, for sure, for sure. And then that's where I like started buying my own stuff, and I was really interested with like the whole business aspect and making your own money. So that really sparked my interest. And then as soon as I turned 15, I got a job. Not even a couple weeks later at the local laundromat, and I was still thrifting, but nowhere near as much. Um, just because the guaranteed income was the main source. So that's what I was just rolling with. And then so at that time it would have been about so I started my eBay account in 2015. I still have the same eBay account, all the feedback and everything. It's very memorable to me.
That's cool.
I take pride in it. And then so I got into so the whole the one thing that really got me into like the streetwear vintage esque, taking this more seriously was Supreme, the heavily coveted brand, the red box logo. Everyone knows that. So my brother, he had bought a hat for $40, and I bought this hat for $40, and it's selling for 65. Um, and I was like, I don't believe you. And then he showed me Grailed at the time, which was a very small app then. And he showed me like these listings for 65, $70. And I was blown away by that concept of that you could buy something like brand new and have it sell out and then resell it for more. So that's when I was like really fascinated with the idea. And I started watching a lot of YouTube. So like round two, and then there was like a lot of Supreme interviews going on. So as I continued to do Supreme, I thrifted a little bit, but not a lot. But with Supreme back in the day, me and my buddy Nolan, we would sit in the auditorium and hope to get one or two T-shirts and make 20, $40. So it really wasn't profitable, or a good business. So we got into more so thrifting.
When you were Supreme,
Um,
though, like how old were you when you were doing the Supreme stuff?
So I would be 15. 15 is when like I first got into Supreme, which would have been like 2016, which what I would consider like the golden era of Supreme. Like right when I got into it, I guess you could say it was on the decline, but like right then it was at its like peak moment. A lot of people knew Supreme, and if you didn't, everyone was going to know it in the next year or two.
Yeah. Then
Um,
is it? I know Supreme. Was it all when you guys were buying it? Was it all online? Did you show up to like physical stores?
so the only physical locations were like New York City, LA, Japan, all there. So unfortunately, like we couldn't go there. But I was so fascinated with that concept because now it's done completely different with in-person raffles and all that. People used to go and line up for days, and there would be
I think I
people
remember
jump in the
seeing on like
line.
IG and like Twitter and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it used to be so different. I was so fascinated by that, and I wanted to participate. But me being 16, not a lot of money, nowhere to stay, it just wasn't possible. So I did what I could online.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but so as I sold Supreme, like I said, wasn't really profitable, and we weren't really getting much inventory, so we started to thrift more. So we'd go around, make our ways through all the Goodwills, and see what they had. And I was intrigued with the idea of vintage. I was still very much into Supreme. I should say at this point we had an Instagram account. So this is what kind of you know this is what really started it all. Is we created an Instagram account to sell on. So it's called Thrift and Hype 412. It sounds so cheesy to look back on it now, but we were super proud of it back then. So we were selling thrifted items and Supreme. So it was like the best of both worlds. Similar to what I'm doing here, just mostly vintage. So we were doing that, and then I'll never forget it. I went thrifting. It was me, my mom, and I think my brother. We went to Goodwill and Plato's Closet, about 15, 20 minutes away from me. And I found a Michael Jackson tour t-shirt from 1988. And I listed it that night. I bought it for, I think it was 199. It was either a dollar or 199. And I bought it that night, listed it for $125. And then I woke up the next morning and it was sold. And at that point, like I was ecstatic. Like
Yeah,
I was
dude.
like, wow, like that's more than I'll make in this week. And I just made that in a couple hours of my time. So that's when I was like, wow, I really like the concept and like idea of selling like older clothes. And like that's what really I should say, like I saw how much of an opportunity there was with the money in the industry, and I saw like the Supreme kind of phasing out. It wasn't really worth my time. So I started to focus more. We started to focus more of that time on vintage. Um, so we continue to do that.
Quick question:
And then
what counts as vintage? I just know vintage as like old clothes.
so vintage, I would consider it varies. It varies person to person. If you ask someone over the age of 50 what vintage is, they'll say 50 to 100 years. You ask someone around my age, I would consider about 20 years and older vintage. You can get away with 15, and then 15 is about Y2K is what they call it, which means just year 2000. Um, and that's typically like the baseline for vintage of what you'll see in vintage stores in price and in pricing and naming. So
Gotcha. And throughout the
yeah.
process where you were like from 14 to these early years when you just started eBay, were you consistent
hmm
the entire time? Like you're always like in the clothing industry when you were working, or were there some months like you weren't doing stuff and then you
So,
get back into it? Or
so there was definitely months where I was less consistent, but I was selling clothes. Like I was definitely selling multiple items a month throughout, like since I was 14, hands down. Some months I might have been selling 20 items. Some months I might have only sold four or five. It really depended on the day, the month, time of the year. For example, with Christmas coming up, like this will be a very busy time. So back then, around this time, this is when the sales would really start to pick up.
so you start selling clothes on eBay, like you're still in high school at this point, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So what's the next step? Obviously, like we're farther, but you're selling clothes. When do
Um.
you start to turn it into like full time, or maybe even if there's some steps between? Like what
Yeah.
happens
So there's
next?
so there. Yeah. So there's steps in between. So as I was saying, I say we a few times. So it was me and my buddy Nolan. And we were doing it, and then we kind of stopped. I wouldn't say, or we didn't. We kind of stopped doing it together and like participating in the Instagram account. I had made a different Instagram account. There was no like bad feelings or anything. We just just didn't really necessarily both have the exact same time slots, because he did sports and I didn't, and so oftentimes like I would go thrifting by myself. So during that time period, is where you could say I kind of slowed down a little bit, and so then I was fascinated with the idea of like drop shipping, and and just like stuff like that. So this was at the time they said, oh, drop shipping is going to stop here soon. It was definitely one of the best times, and it continued to get better than that. So I found a dude through Instagram. He was selling Supreme and sneakers at the time, and he was selling iPhone chargers for $1 a piece. And he's like, you can sell them for $10 a piece in person. So I looked at them and I was like, that's pretty cool. So I bought 50. And then I remember I turned it into $150 is what I ended up turning that into. And so I
Online
was
or in
like, wow,
person?
like, so it was a mixture. I put it like on my Snapchat, and then via Instagram, I put it up. I was like 10 chargers for, like 30 shipped or something like that. For example. And then I was very fascinated in how fast I move them. So I was like, I'm interested in more. So I was like, are these official? And he was like,
Yeah, were they
yeah,
good
they're
chargers?
to be honest, they were not. They
Yeah.
they were the very cheap ones.
Yeah, yeah.
They were from China. So going more into the fact that I was like, the quality aren't that good on these and everything. Like they aren't the best. Like they're not like an official iPhone charger. And I'm like, so you're charging $1 a piece? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, all right. So I got to thinking, I'm like, well, I could probably find these myself. So hop on Alibaba, AliExpress. Bam, within 10 seconds, I find a dude that's offering a third of that price. So I found basically my own supplier from China. And then I would start to get these imported, and resell them on my eBay. So rather
Were
than
you getting
focusing on,
I know in drop shipping sometimes they get them delivered like they'll just distribute from like some drop shipper. You're getting them delivered directly to you.
yes, because that was the one thing, because I was fascinated with drop shipping, but the thing was I did not like the delay, because at buying and selling on eBay, and shipping a lot of packages, people want things fast. They don't want to wait 4 weeks for a $20 product, and at the time the only drop shipping warehouses were located across seas. So when you replace your order, it might take 3 weeks to get here.
Yeah.
Nowadays, with drop shipping, they have warehouses all over the USA where you can run successful drop shipping businesses and get 2-day priority
Yeah.
shipping.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Versus back then, at least to me, I didn't have that option. Um, so what I was doing is I was ordering them
Can
and
you
then
drop
distributing
your
them
mic?
myself. Oh yeah, for sure.
Just like leave it to no, like it's good where it's at, but just like don't touch
Oh
the cord so then it stays like
oh yeah,
stable.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. My bad.
No, you're good. Yeah.
But no, so yeah, so I started getting direct shipments from a supplier in China, and I built a good relationship with them. So I turned into 150, so I spent that 150, and then got more chargers. Like I think I was paying anywhere from 45 to 60 cents a charger, depending on like the quantity that I ordered. So like I said, I spent 150 and then I bought $300 worth. Next thing you know, I bought $600 worth.
Where are you
And
selling
then,
them at?
so I was selling them packs of three originally they were 11.99 to start.
The
So
markup is nice.
yes, but not it was a little too good to be true. So I started to absolutely powerhouse these chargers. So like I said, I ordered the 150, sold them like that. I recouped the money, spent 300, and then sold them like that. But the thing was, there was such a delay in the shipment from China, where there would be a period of, let's say, a week where I didn't sell many because I didn't have any in stock. So that was one of the things. Is there was like a product, there was a supply chain issue. I just didn't have consistent deliveries. So I did this for about a span of two months, and it went really well. And then I broke my personal record was I shipped 151 packages in a day. So it was 151 orders placed, and then packages shipped in 24 hours.
Wow.
So
Are
that was
you
my
and you're doing
record.
this all by yourself?
Yes, I was doing it all by myself. At the time, I didn't have a label printer. I was going to my library to print the labels, paying 10 cents a copy, and then taping them. And so after that, after I had this big day of 150 and how much time it took, I was like, wow, there has to be an easier way. So sure enough, right, that the next day I bought a label printer, a Rulo label printer, which I still use to this day, the most convenient tool. I will, I will take that thing with me to my deathbed. That thing has helped me so much. Um, and then, unfortunately, I get hit with an email from eBay and Apple saying my account is suspended. And so what it was is I was saying iPhone Apple chargers, and um, so the way that it was, I guess some people interpreted or Apple took it as is that I was selling
Like Apple
original
branded
Apple
products.
charges. Yeah, and it was because I used the word Apple in the description. So I was shut down for 30 days, and then it picked back up, but at that time period, after a month, the like I said, I was charging 11.99. I think the margins went down to, let's say, 9.99. And then I was like, okay, so there was still money to be made. And then so I continued to do this for another 3 months. So it was about a 6 month period total that I did
How
all
much
these
money are you
chargers.
making? Like at this peak
Um,
time?
in this 6 months, I think I grossed like $19,000 in sales.
Damn. Okay. Oh, and
In
sales?
that
What do you think? Like
Yeah,
revenue?
in revenue, maybe like with everything you count all the because like my expenses that were high at first with the library fees and the packaging. So if I had to guess, I think it was about like maybe like $7,000.
And but how old were you?
I would have been 17 at the
Yeah, that's
time.
still fire though. For sure.
Oh,
Like
for
that,
sure.
especially like it's
Uh,
running your own business at 17 and like doing the whole thing. Like
yeah.
that's hella cool.
And I should also say this: I was working also 20 to 30 hours at a time at my job as well. So so the thing was, I was like, man, I could be doing this by myself. And then I got hit with a 30-day thing, and I was like, it's still good to keep that consistent income until you're financially
Yeah, no, I
ready
think
to
it's
do this
smart.
by
I
yourself.
think it's smart.
And then around month 6, the margins were like, they weren't worth my time, so I hopped out, and I pretty much just liquidated all my inventory and I didn't buy any more. And then what I got out of it was, some profit, some good assets like my label printer,
Good
all these other
experience.
things. Exactly. And then the eBay feedback and the sales like that really boosted my eBay account. And pretty much your eBay feedback is like a credit score. The more you have, the better generally the better off you are. So that when I started going back to more the vintage clothing now, that is when like things would sell really fast for me, and it was just a lot easier because I was a top rated seller, and whatnot. So that was like the span of like the eBay, and then at this point I really picked up the online Instagram account like I said I had before. Um, like I said, I probably took like a little hiatus and I wasn't selling on Instagram as much, but I was still consistent with eBay, selling multiple items a month.
Were you?
Um,
Oh, with the clothes.
yeah, still while doing the Chargers versus like I might have had like 50 items listed on eBay prior. I might have only had 10 or so, listed a month during that Charger span. And then after the Chargers, I picked right back up. And then so to go off on a little another thing, so then that was like that was like this like the turning point of like, okay, I made a lot of money. I want to do something by myself. Like I want to be able to own my own business. So then to create my own business, even though I was running my own business, I created my own clothing brand. So that was like something that people knew me for. So eBay I did, but I really kind of like kept that to the side. I wasn't sending my eBay account to fellow classmates or anything like that. But when I started my clothing brand, I was
Is
able to
attached
pump
to
it out.
you, like your
Yeah,
personality.
exactly, and that's how people knew me. Oh, so my brand was called Lucid Threads. Oh, you're the Lucid Threads guy. Oh, like people just
That's
knew
cool.
me as that. So yeah, so that's like kind of like the next leg of the clothing adventure.
Two quick questions because we're gonna go down
Yes,
that.
sir.
When you when you made all the money from eBay, because you're like what,
Mhm.
17?
Yeah.
Were you good at saving it, or were you?
No, not at all. Not at all. That is the one thing like I wish because my dad, I have very good saving mentalities now. And for these reasons of when I was like, dang, what if I had, half of that saved away or
It's a hard
something.
lesson you gotta learn.
Oh, for sure. And you have to learn it at some point. Like you got to mess up to be able to understand it. I definitely am a firm believer in that. So I was not really saving anything. As a matter of fact, like I was buying cool clothing and stuff like that. But also at the same time, I was buying good assets. Like like a computer, like computer supplies. I should say a whole computer. And then shipping supplies, a computer desk, and stuff like that. But for the most part, my saving mentality was poor in high school.
And the other question was, at what age was the clothing brand? This is when you're in high school. It's like senior year.
Yeah, so this would have been also when I was 17. So I was about to say actually no, I was 16 when I did the Chargers, but I was 17. That was more towards the start of when I was 17. So I turned 17 or my birthday's in July, so started the Chargers thing kind of around September, and then it kind of finished out around like the start of the new year. Um, and then that is where the clothing brand came into play. So it would have been 2019 is when the clothing brand was created.
Okay. And
Yes.
what? How did it go? You launch it. You're sending it to your
So
friends.
yeah, so it's funny enough. So I actually started the clothing brand in school, in one of my graphic design class, or some one of those technical classes. So I should start by, pardon me, I should start by saying I've done wood shop, all of the design, all of that, and those were by far my favorite classes. Wood shop to be specific. I've always been very handy, very technical. I like to design, things like that. Like for example, I made my own desk, dresser, giant Nike red shoebox that holds 16 pairs of shoes. I pretty much designed my whole room throughout high school, in my wood shop, which is pretty cool.
That is dope.
Um,
You gotta
and
show me a picture. I want to see that shoebox. We'll throw it in the
oh, for
video.
sure, for sure, I definitely will. And it's cool. I posted to my like my reselling Instagram account, the account that I have right now that I use for my business. I posted it like 5 years ago, so it's cool. I can scroll back. At the time, it got like 40 likes, which was a lot for me when I was averaging like 10 or 12. So it's like cool to go back and see that. So the wood shop and all the classes really opened up my eye to like the design side and all this and being hands on. So we were allowed to, through this design class, you made like stickers, t-shirts, bags, any signs, just stuff you wanted to make. It was just to get your creative juices flowing and to familiarize with the programs they offered, which was CorelDRAW. So I was like, I was obviously really into Supreme. So one of the things I did was like my one of my first like rough logos was, it was called Public Appearance was the name, and it was just in a red box logo like Supreme, ripped like the exact same. So it was just a design. It didn't go anywhere. And then I was thinking of like a name, and it took me honestly weeks to think of like a good name. Like I would sleep on it, wake up, and then I knew I wanted to have threads in it, and I kind of wanted to do something like trippy, like kind of like colorful or like just like tie dye vibes. So I was like lucid threads, and then bam. So I created a basic design in the class, and then I got a test print made, and so that was like the start of it. And then the next thing I did was I created a limited edition run of T-shirts. They were limited to 20, and they were all like one, two, all individually numbered. I got those made. So it wasn't even Lucid Threads yet. It was more so just like a test run. Because I wasn't like sure like what I wanted to do.
Were
So
these
it was called.
prints, or like what type of? How did you make these?
So they were. So I actually got these professionally made, I guess you could say. They were direct to garment, which is the cheapest form of printing nowadays. And I got like a white background on a white T-shirt. So there was like a dark gray box with like the logos on it, or like what I had in it, and then there was the white T-shirt. So they did not look the best at all. but I ended up selling I think like 16 out of the 20, and the design was called Virgil. What was it? It was I think it was like Virgil created Meskanick mastered, which my last name is Meskanick. So I was saying like I completed it. So it was like the quotation marks and limited numbers. Basically like another off, like I said, I ripped the Supreme, I ripped the off-white
I gotta rip off
concept.
everybody to
And
start.
so and then so I was like, okay, so I sold them, and then so with the whole Lucid Threads blank, I was like, all right. So with the money I generated and with the um with like the money I generated with the chargers, I think I put in maybe like $1,200 into into my first run of t-shirts for
Into the
Lucid
20
Threads.
t-shirts.
No, I'm sorry. Into the after with the 20 t-shirts, I literally broke even because of the way I did it. It was my first run. Like I said, there was printing in multiple spots, DTG, and like each you would think the more you get, the less expensive it is, which is not true for like the style of how I got done versus screen printing. The more colors you do, the cheaper it is. So with the t-shirts, I barely made like any money, but with the profits that I had gotten, from the chargers, I had put a portion of that in, kind of like the last little bit of what I had in my checking account. I put $1,200 into the Lucid Threads order, and then after I got those in, I think I ordered 72 t-shirts, three different styles of 24, um, or so, roughly around that quantity. And then I started the Instagram account. I should say that I started another Instagram account for Lucid Threads, which was like kind of like the other thing that I really like to do, which is social media. I like to create content. So after that, um, got a bunch of pictures made and everything, and then created a free website on Wix, or I'm sorry, Big Cartel, and the first drop went really well, and that's what that was like, wow, I really like this idea of running your own business. Not like I said, I was doing it before with the chargers, but it was cool because I could call this my brand. I wasn't
Yeah, and
using a
it's your
marketplace.
product.
Yes, it was my product. It had my name. Like I was standing behind it, and people really liked that.
How'd you
And
get them
and it was
sold?
I
You
was just
know,
saying
like
it was also cool that like to see friends and family support me for something like that, which I really liked.
that's dope.
Yes, yes.
Profit wise, were there like good margins on those?
With the clothing, it was better. Yeah. So with those, I got direct to garment and screen printing. So with the screen printing, I did like basic one color. So we're talking $7 a t-shirt, and then maybe like $3 a print. So it was like $10 into the cost, and I think I was charging uh 17, 20, and 25, and they typically were all around um the $10 cost average.
Nice.
So the margins were a lot better there. And then so from there, uh let's see, so I should say, as this was going on, the first drop, I was in the midst of graduating high school. So the first drop was, I believe, May 1st of 2019, and I graduated like maybe like a month later. So I went to California on a road trip for my senior trip. We went from PA, California on a road trip. So I spent some of the money there. Like I said, I didn't have the best saving habits.
Yeah, you're in high school, you
So
know.
yeah, so then I was like, oh crap. So then I still had a job, so I used some of that money and the leftover money, and I put together another drop. Um, and so at this time period, uh, Lucid Threads was really cool, and I was making good money. But to be honest, I really wasn't satisfied with it. Like I knew I could do more. Um, and I don't know if it was like a specific day at the thrift store or what it was. But I really thought that like I was really I became more fascinated with the idea of like sustainable fashion. I'm trying to remember if there was like a turning point, but I don't think it was. But like one day I was just like, I really like the idea of like someone getting the life out of a clothing item, donating it and then someone else getting a whole nother life. Like I'm trying to remember off the top of my head of a like a time, but I can't um that made that happen. But there was like a sudden shift in my change because I did that last, like I said, I did that third Lucid Threads drop, and I wouldn't say I didn't half-ass it, but I wasn't fully focused on it. And at that point, I was like, I really want to start selling the vintage clothing more. I just found more enjoyment out of it.
And you're still doing while you're doing the your own brand, you're still doing a little bit on eBay on the side.
Yeah, exactly. So, if I hit the thrift store, but back then you could hit the thrift store and get maybe like 5 t-shirts or so, like on a random day and list them up. And, if I was still selling, 5 to 10 t-shirts a month, it's anywhere from like, 60 to $150 profit on average, I would say. So it was still like good money. Like, okay, that would pay like if I was going to go to a concert or something like that, 2 concerts, like I treated it more so like my spending money
Gotcha.
to say with the eBay.
And you're also working at this time.
Yes, correct. And then so at this time when I was getting away from Lucid Threads, I started going to community college. So ever since when I started going to high school, I'll never forget my what do you call this, guidance counselor. He told me that if you don't go to college, like you're not going to do well in life. And like me being scared, and if you don't take 2 years of a language and pass, you're not going to get into a good college. And I can just remember me being a freshman, being scared for these things, and then my father wanted me to go to college, and I didn't really just like want to just start working. So I was like, all right, I'll go to community college and go for business because I know that's something I like. So I started going there, and I fell in love with business because I really like the idea of school. I enjoyed going to school versus high school. I just enjoyed being there because my friends were there in woodshop. Very, very minimal reasons. Versus when I started going to college, I was learning stuff that actually applied to me. Um, and obviously there was some bullcrap classes like English and all this stuff, which I didn't really care about. But for the most part, the teachers there and like the classroom sizing had the biggest impact because we're talking at my community college, there was anywhere from my smallest class, there was like 6 kids, and the biggest, there was maybe like 24. So
Yeah.
everyone somewhat knew each other on a name to name basis. And with like the class of 6 people, my favorite teacher, Mr. Zorn, one of the reasons I'm here where I am
Shout
today.
out Mrs. Zorn.
Yeah, great. He's a great teacher. He really knows how to communicate well with students and talk with them and get kids to engage to learn. Um, so as this happened, he was really like like it was he was like pumping me up to like just like you gotta do this like and giving all these good ideas and teaching these great lessons
What
that
did
I
he
could
teach?
apply on. So he taught a bunch of things. So he taught like intro to business, and then also, uh, what was the other one? I see. That's the thing. I don't remember the. I know intro to business for sure. And then accounting, and I don't remember what the other. I took 3 other classes that semester. I don't remember what the names were, but they were all like
Like
very like
business classes?
intro. Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. Stuff I honestly, some stuff was good, some stuff was bad as far as the classes. But yeah, so he was telling me, oh yeah, business opportunities, this and that, and other students were doing their own thing, and I told him about the Lucid Threads and the thrifting, and he's like, well, I think you should still continue with the Lucid Threads and whatnot. So I was still doing it, and then I did one drop with my school where I graduated, Mars High School, where me and John Rent, who you know. Uh, so I had contacted them, and they were doing a pink out game, and they were giving all the proceeds to someone who was suffering from cancer. And so I was like, all right, I'll design the t-shirts, and then I was like, well, here's what I can do. I can design t-shirts, get the t-shirts made, and then any profit that's from them, we'll donate it to the family. So I believe I got 200 t-shirts made. Um, and the football game would have been on like a Friday. I got them to the school on a Thursday, and by Friday, I think Friday halfway through lunch, they had sold out of all the t-shirts. So that kind of like got the juices back. I was like, okay, like Lucid Threads is feasible. Like it was like at the time, like I said, I was ordering like 72 t-shirts at a time versus selling 200 in the matter of 2 days, not even a couple hours. I was like, wow. So I ended up doing another Lucid Threads drop, like one more, and it did well, but it just I wasn't satisfied with it. I just didn't like it. And then at this point, in time, thrifting and Instagram really started to take off for me. After that winter Lucid Threads drop, that's really when it was like a turning point for
Okay.
me.
So this is your freshman year in college.
Yes.
Um, the vintage Instagram
Hmm.
starts turning up. How do you get to having your own store?
So to getting my own store, I mean, there's a bunch of
Real
factors.
quick, how old are you right now?
21 years old. I'm
Okay,
21 years old.
that's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So the first step that I took was, I should also say this. I forgot to mention in 10th grade, when Thrift and Hype was going on, I had what was it? It wasn't personal financing, some business class in 10th grade, but we had to create a business plan. So I created a business plan for Thrift and Hype 412, which was the plan for a store which sells vintage and Supreme, which is what I have here now. Unfortunately, I cannot find it, and I can't access it because it would be on a school computer.
That sucks.
But the first step I did when like I was like, okay, like I know Lucid Threads really isn't like my mission, it's not my passion. I want to open like a vintage store. And so the first step I took was I started selling vintage items in my brother's business. And I should say my buddy Nolan, who did Thrift and Hype with me, he also put some pieces in there with me to help fill it. Um, but so yeah, so my brother owns a business. He's been a small business owner for just about 4 years now. Started kind of where near I'm from, and then he opened up a business. He opened up his business um, with another person, and unfortunately, it didn't work out.
What was his
So
business? Clothing as
it's
well?
called no, so it's called Pittsburgh Smoke Shop. So glass, vape, wellness, CBD, Delta 8, wraps, papers, candles, rolling trays, the whole 9 yards. So he after that, my brother stayed. He continued to run that business under, pardon me, under a different name, in that spot. And since they split, the dude took his portion, or his belongings and stuff. So there was a spot that needed filled. So there was slat wall, which I don't know if what you're familiar with, but so just basically simple attachments you can slip into the wall and put hangers up and stuff like that, like product display, areas. So we put up maybe like 50 pieces or so to start. So that was like the first official storefront, for me. That was how I got started with like the in-person sales.
Were you working there as well?
No, no. So my brother was working there full time. Props to my brother. My brother is one of the hardest working people I know. Obviously inspires me. But there were periods where, like I think 2 years ago, he worked like 360 out of out of the 360 days out of the year.
Damn, shout out
Um,
your brother for
yeah,
real.
and to now a point where he has employees now and he's able to take time off, and enjoy it. But it's a part of the grind. So he was able to pretty much, oh hey, if someone wanted to buy a $20 T-shirt, he would just write that down for us, and we would go from there.
That's dope.
Oh yeah, that. But no, yeah. So after that, my brother ended up moving down to a town called Bellevue, PA, which is um 20 25 minutes from where I'm from, or about 40 minutes from where his previous store was located. There's walking traffic, bus line. It's in a town setting. There's a community. It was just very different. Pretty much where the store was before was more rural. This is, very suburban, city-like living. Um, so as this was going on, my brother moved down here. The pandemic hit. So he moved in, let's say February, and then, next thing you know, everyone's supposed to be shut down. No one really knows what's going on. And at this point in time, the schooling changed for me. The curriculum was. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, yeah. So whatever.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. But
Yeah,
it's bullshit. I've been trying to hold myself
yeah.
back.
No,
But
appreciate
the
you
the
asking though,
curriculum,
for real.
yeah, the curriculum was bullshit. That second semester, and I was like, wow, I do not like this at all. And I wasn't learning anything. I could tell you what I learned up until the last day of in-person classes, but everything,
No, once it
everything.
went online,
Yeah, I'm so much more of an in-person physical learner. And
I feel
the
you.
other thing was initiative. I didn't really want to after it wasn't enjoyable. I didn't want to hop on and do school. So during that time period, I had decided, or that summer I was thrifting and whatnot, and
Is it summer of 2020?
yes, yes. So like after when it like everything kind of opened back up, so I was thrifting a lot at the time. Wait, hold on one second. My bad about that.
You're good.
So at the
I'll cut
time,
it.
it was 2020. And I had decided that I was gonna take, or let me take a step back. It was 2020, and um the pandemic is fresh out. The summer is approaching. I had quit my job at the pizza shop because my whole family wasn't working and I was the only one working, and no one knew what COVID was. So it was just the safe at the time. It was the safest route for me to be like, all right, to protect my family, I'm just going to stop working, and they understood it and everything. So I got a job at Dollar Tree in the springtime after a couple months off. At the time I was still doing eBay and flipping stuff like that. But I got a job at Dollar Tree, or I should say I applied at Dollar Tree, and I was like, "What's the pay like?" They're like, "Oh, 7.25 or 7.50, whatever minimum wage is here." And I'm just like, "Oh, okay." Knowing I can't afford my time is worth much more than this. And they're like, yeah, like you at the time you don't currently apply, but for the position, but we do like to internally hire assistant managers and stuff like that, and we'll be looking for them in the future. And then I told them, so then I was like, okay, and the interview process goes on, and I told them that, I've had a job since I was 15. I run two of my own my own, I run two online businesses, my eBay and my clothing brand, and this and that, and they were really happy with me. And I left, and I'm like, oh, like they were good people, but like I can't work for that. And then I shit you not, like I get home 5 minutes later, they call me and they're like, hey, we actually think you'd be a great fit to become a manager, like to apply for the assistant manager. And I was like, all right, like I'm down for that. And so I had applied, and the pay was like 11, let's say like 11.50 or something. And I applied, and there was like a math test and all these like written online tests, and there was like legit geometry questions on here, and I'm like, I don't know why you would need to know these. And I shit you not, I guessed on some of the math ones. Like it was stuff that
That is
like
weird for an
me.
assistant manager job.
Yeah, it was extremely odd. And so then the next day they call me and like, you got the job, and I'm like, wonderful. So I'm 19 at the time, and I get a part-time assistant manager, and so they're still looking to fill another assistant, a part-time, and then a full-time assistant manager. There was five other people that applied, college students, regular, just like employees elsewhere, and they all failed, and I had got this job. And so I am 19 years old. I'm the young, so I'm in July. So technically, like I could be a year go. I could have graduated in 2020 if I wanted, but 2019 is just where I ended up. So a lot of these kids, I'm 19, managing kids that are a year, if not a couple years older than me. So I was like, okay. At this point, I'm like, I'm just gonna work full time. I'm just gonna work a lot rather than go back to school because, I'll reevaluate it next year. But if it's all gonna be online, I'm not gonna waste my money. You know.
Yeah. No, I feel like
So so
I was in school during the pandemic as well. I didn't really like
and
online classes.
yeah,
I didn't do
yeah.
too well
So
either.
exactly. So I just so I continued to work, and it was great. Like I eventually found my flow. Like it was really hard at first, like managing people, one that are older than you, and then two that are people that you graduated high school with and that you call your friends. Because that's definitely like the biggest thing is because there's a time to work and then there's a time to like laugh and hang out, and you have to be able to differentiate the two.
Would you
So
say you were good at that, or
Oh, yeah,
would
so it took me some time, but I did. I would say I eventually I was like, all right, I got to grab it by the harness. I just have to. They're gonna have to respect me for who I am whether they like it.
that's
So
work?
exactly. So within the matter of 2 weeks, I got promoted to the full time assistant manager. So my job title was freight manager. So I was in charge of unloading the trucks, unloading the vendors, doing all opening, closing. I was the second in command there. So that was wonderful. I really enjoyed it until August, late August, and I had all these good workers, um, fresh high school graduates, college students, people that had a good work ethic, and then they all went back to school, and no one wanted to work because I should also say this: they had a $2 COVID premium bonus. They took that away, so no one wanted to work for 750 right at the pandemic. So all the weight fell on me, my other coworker, which who was my good friend, and then like a couple other employees. So after 6 months there, I decided to call it quits. So me and my buddy, we up and left, or we obviously put our 2 weeks in, but we went and applied to Target. So we went over there to make $15 an hour. So he went from 720, 750 an hour to making 15. I went from making like I think I went up to 1250 after my full time position. I went from making 1250 to 15, and the amount of work we were doing was a tenth of what we were doing at Dollar Tree, which isn't any means of like a comparison. Um, because when I come to work, I'm ready to work. But at Dollar Tree, that's
You
the
just
way
you
they
found
make.
a better opportunity. That's
Yeah,
how it
yeah,
is.
exactly,
So you're
exactly.
working these retail jobs, um, Dollar Tree and then Target.
hmm
You're still doing eBay on the side.
Yeah, so I'm
Are
doing
you?
eBay, and then I'm really more so eBay. I'm doing Instagram.
Gotcha.
So I'm trying to really like promote that like my own brand. Because like a while ago, like a couple 5 years ago, it was very common for people to hand out business cards with their eBay and stuff. But I personally like a couple years ago, I just didn't. I thought that was cheesy, and I was like, well, when I hand you a business card, I want it to be my website. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So I never really did that. So I was more so focusing on or trying to focus on the Instagram account. So as I continued to sell clothing, I was going to the flea markets more, thrifts more. Shout out to my girlfriend Bethany.
Shout
I
out
met
Bethany.
her at the start of the pandemic. For a while, I didn't have a car. God forbid, she'd take me to work in the morning, pick me up after. We would go thrifting together. She's like my ride or die, and I wouldn't be anywhere without her, or I wouldn't be anywhere where I am today without her.
That's dope.
So she was really helping me out. Things were going great, and then uh, so at the time I remember I rebranded. So over the Instagram, like I said, there was Thrift and Hype. Then I changed it to Sup PGH. I changed it to for Supreme. I changed it to Thrift dot 41. Like Thrift Finds dot 412. And then eventually, 2021 or 20 is it 20 or 2021? I changed it to the Closet 724. So that was when, because my area code is 724. That's when like the brand of this store really started. So during this time period, my brother, or wait, no, I'm sorry, I was about to say I'm a year, I'm about to jump the gun a year. Um, but so as I was working at Target,
No, I'm curious about like the start, especially like the start of the store. Like,
Yeah.
like at what date did you? Let's say we'll start with the start and then work back and work forward a little bit. But
Yeah.
when did you open? Like, when did the
I
doors
opened
open?
so I opened December 1st, 2021.
Okay, nice. So coming up on a year soon.
Yes, yes. Starting to get the plans rolling for that.
What led up to the opening? So, like from my perspective, I've never opened a store. You know, is there a lot of
Yes.
costs? Did you supply and all that? And like, what was the thought process
Um
going into it?
well, so pretty much so the plan I had always, like I said, I always wanted to open the store, but I decided I was going to do it 100% mid-August 2021 is when I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Is when I committed to doing that, and more so because my brother, the spot I'm in right now, this unit, my brother, this was his first spot in Bellevue. So my brother was here, like I said, moved to start a pandemic. He did so good for himself to the point where he got himself a much bigger spot in the center of town. Parking, great lighting, much bigger displays, much more product, and he was still paying on this. And there was 13 months left on the lease, or 14 or 15 months left on the lease at the time. And I was like, like I really want to do that. And my mom, shout out to my mom, she was like, I really think you should take the leap. So I talked to my brother, and um, so it sat empty for a little bit, and then I was like, I want to do it. So we came to terms, and pretty much I for 13 months subleased this spot for my brother, and um, so or I should say, like the technical first day of my lease was November 1st. But I was in here in October. It was just under my brother. But that's when I was like in here taking pictures, measurements, and then November was like grind time. So November, I was planning out the racks, getting the racks made, trying to source some inventory, um, and then like but realistically, like 90% of the work happened in the last week of November 25th, until December 1st is when most of the putting together, assembling, tagging, stuff like that really happened.
When you think about that week, is that like a pretty like fun memory to have?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely, it's honestly like pretty blurry because like the amount of stuff that I did and that my family helped me with, like my mom, like I remember it was like 3 a.m. here the night before, and my mom, my brother, my sister, my girlfriend are all here hanging stuff up, helping me. It was like a surreal experience. I remember like just sitting there for a second, being like, "It's about to happen." Um,
That's really
but
cool.
no, but
That's
oh, for
cool.
sure.
It sounds like
But
a fun memory, like chaotic, but like
exactly.
just a good time.
Yeah, so but my official like I said, I worked up at Target. I worked at Target up until mid October is when I put in my 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So since it's been open, you've been open what, December of last year? It's October, like almost 11 months now.
Yes. Yes.
How's it been running your own
Uh,
business?
oh, it's been fantastic. So the first day I was open, it was a good time. It was a great time. But it really wasn't like that experience because, my family was here. A lot of customers were here. It was just like a big day. But I'll never forget the second day walking in, and I looked around. And I was like, "This is mine." And I was like, "If I want to just sit down all day, I can do that." And that is when I like was like that is when you realize, okay, well, how much work I do today depends on how much money or how much
Now
money
it's
I
up to
make. How
me.
much, yeah, exactly, how much money I make depends on how much work and how much effort I put into this. So that was like, okay, it's grind time. So then, over the past year, the growth has been tremendous, especially via like social media, because like with the area I'm in and the exact unit I'm in, it's not necessarily like people are walking down the street saying, "Oh my God, there's a vintage store." It happens, but most of the people coming to this store know I'm here.
From social media.
Yes, from social media. It's more of a destination.
What do you do now on social media to get people in and just to increase your presence?
Number one thing now is TikTok. Number two is Instagram. Started with Instagram, like I said. I've been doing Instagram for a while. And it's really for Instagram for me, or I should say like social media, I should say, is like pretty much your online business card. So when I hand you my business card, you see my logo and what I sell and all that. Instagram is just the same thing, just a more in-depth version. So the product that like I post to Instagram is in the content that I put out there represents me. So like I said, I do TikTok and Instagram. So right now I'm averaging 2 to 3 days on or 2 to 3 times a day on TikTok, and then 1 to 2 on Instagram.
Dang. Is that because I'm trying to get into that right now? Sorry, my lights are
Yeah.
off. I'm trying to get into that right now at the podcast. Like, how much time do you have to dedicate to social media, and are you the only person managing
So,
all of it?
so I am not at the moment now. So I over the past maybe month or two, I've been having my girlfriend Bethany help me out. So like I said, I was doing Instagram, and then she made me. So I had actually made it. Pardon me, a TikTok maybe like 20, maybe like the spring 2021, and I like cleaned a hat for vintage, and that was all I posted on it. So I had the account made and everything. I just didn't do anything with it. And she's like, "Oh, let me make a video for you." So she makes me a video, and it's like some Italian thing, some Italian 6 second trend. And then the next day I get a text, and it's just like, "Hey man, this is blah blah blah. I saw your TikTok. I want to buy that Marlboro basket. How much?" I'm like, how'd you get my number? And like what? And he's like, "Oh, well, I just looked it up." And he's like, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, "Well, it's not for sale, blah blah blah." And I texted Bethany, and I was like, "Can you check the TikTok, see if it like got a couple likes or anything?" She's like, "Oh my god, it has like 1,000 likes." And then next thing you know, it kept going up and up and up. And then over the course of like the next 2 weeks, or should I say over the next month, I think I counted like just over 260 people, 260 customers, people that spent money here from that video.
Wow.
So that was like my eye opener. I was like, holy shit, like if you can make this much money off a couple second advertisement, like we're gonna focus on that. So I didn't really focus on it as much as like I said, we need to. Maybe posted like a video or 2 videos a week, and then I made a video of like it used to be very popular. It's where you do like 10 seconds of caption across a 7 second video, so it loops twice. And I'll never forget, like someone commented. I posted at like 10, and someone commented like L or something, and I was like, dang, like what? Like that was a fail. Like it just wasn't really too positive on me.
Wait, what
And
do
then
you
I get like
mean? I'm confused. So what is a 10? What's this 10 second and then 10 second?
so so what you do is you create you write 10 seconds of caption, so you like write it out and then you count it out and make sure it's 10 seconds long, and then you do an 8 second video, so it loops twice, so by the time you finish reading it, the video has played or at least started again.
Oh, gotcha.
And so it was
That's
a common
smart.
one.
Oh,
Yeah, it was like do this if you're a small business and TikTok isn't giving you enough views. So I did it, and then someone commented like L or it's not gonna work, and I was just like, oh man, what the heck? I was like, oh, that's pretty negative. And I got an online sale, and I was like, all right. And then 2 minutes later, I got another one. I was like, okay. Like I was about to go to bed, like all like not on on the best mindset. And then from like 11 to 3 a.m., I had like 34 orders. I stayed up the whole night. I was about to go to bed, and I was just like so ecstatic. And I was like, I'm gonna sell my whole site out. Like I didn't even know, I like at this, I didn't that it was, and then that was like, okay, like we need to start doing this more. So after that, I was pretty consistent with the TikToks, and that drove online sales, in-person sales. But I was still focusing on Instagram, and then really like uh, midsummer, I should say around August is when I started taking TikTok very seriously. Um, because my girlfriend's brother, Kyle, he actually lives in New York City, like I said. He manages the social media for the drone racing league, like their Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube Reel. and he like their Instagram the TikTok account, he's gained them over like 3 million followers. Their Instagram account is crazy. He just won an award for like best best social media sports creators, something along that
That's dope.
lines. And he was basically just like filling me in and saying, okay, this is what it's done for his company, and this is what it can do for you. And like he's like, you've seen it happen twice, like. And then I was like, all right. So at that time period, I was like, give me a quick rundown. And he's like, 2 to 3 a day. Consistency is key, even if it's not the best content. Getting something out there is better than getting nothing out there. So um, after that, like I said, I hired or have my girlfriend Bethany helping me. So what we do is we'll either FaceTime or be together, and say we'll do like 20 minutes and create ideas for the week or ideas that we think will do well. And then she'll come to the store maybe like 2 or 3 days a week. We'll plan, we'll do them each night. And then I have like a everyday planner, and then just like the list of TikToks I have. And then I'll just coordinate 3 time slots. Like I think I had an alarm go off at 7:30, or I had one go off at 6:30, and that was supposed to be my TikTok time to post earlier. So that is how I coordinate my TikTok. Now with Instagram, it's kind of random. Typically, I like to do before lunch and before dinner.
That's sick. I actually haven't. I needed to take. You'll have to send me your TikTok after this. I want to check it out, and
For sure,
you can
dude.
definitely learn from you. So you've been since you started turning up on it. Is it like you're pretty good, consistent, 2 to 3 a day?
Yes, yes. So there's a few days where like I might only post one or so. But consistently, my analytics, I think it's like 2.4 for the past month.
You ever, when you
So
first started posting, were you ever nervous? I know you've been kind of on social media for a
oh
while, but
yeah, like or I say on TikTok. Well, so there was a point for me where I was like, holy shit, if stupid sells, then I'll be stupid as stupid as it gets. Like if that's gonna get people to come into my store and buy stuff and like what I do, that's what I'll do. But like for instance, like the one thing that I've noticed, like for instance, if you check out my TikTok, 90% of the TikToks that do well have me in it. It's just personable content. That's what people relate to the most, I feel like. So generally, the videos that do the best for me have my face in it, or me, as like me as a person doing a task or something like that.
that's lit. I'm just taking notes.
Oh yeah,
You know,
dude. Trust me. Hey, that's like the one thing that I've noticed with TikTok, or I should say in general, Instagram as well. If it has me in it, it's generally going to do well. I definitely think and know people like to be able to relate and to see a person
yeah, the human part of it.
rather than just seeing a product. Definitely adds a little bit.
That's real. So what's the goal, man? You're young. You're an entrepreneur. You obviously have
Oh,
entrepreneurial genes. You have your own business right now. You did all this stuff, and you have a store. I mean, you feel real quick.
yes.
First question before we go to the goal. So I'll cut my own question, but do you feel successful?
Do I feel successful? Yeah, I do feel successful. I wouldn't say I am. Uh, I do. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I do feel successful, but I don't feel like I'm anywhere near where I will be. But I do. Like I do sometimes look back at, like, for instance, like where I was 1 year ago today, and I was like, wow, if I would have told myself I would be in this exact position, I don't think I would necessarily believe that. Even though I'm a very like positive person, I just think that the success has come a lot faster than anticipated.
That's dope. Now, what
Yes,
is the
for sure.
goal? What are some of
Um,
your goals going forward?
so I have a bunch of goals. For number one, next year I want to relocate up on the avenue. So the main street in Bellevue is called Lincoln Avenue, and I'm off on South Fremont, which is just a little side street. The spot does the job. I have parking. Um, it's cheaper than if it was up on the main drag in the center of town. So it's a double-edged sword. But the goal is next year to be up on the avenue, have a bigger space, be able to get more product out there. So that's like next year's goal, um, or by the end of 2023. And then some other goals that I have is my 5 year goal. is to be in Ross Park Mall, which is basically the biggest mall around. There's Louis Vuitton, the Gucci's going in there, Burberry's there. There's a sneaker store. There's multiple Foot Locker-esque stores. It's like the premier mall around. And that's the 5-year goal. It is very expensive, but like I said, that's like the number one area for foot traffic in my target market. Um, so that's it for like the business. Those are like some business goals. But some personal goals are I do want to get myself some property. Like the one thing I really like is like the tiny home living, kind of like buying a little piece of property, building somewhat of like a tiny home on it, not extremely tiny, but like a smaller style home, putting a 5 to 7 year mortgage on it, paying it off, fast, and then renting that out and building something bigger. So basically, like before, so I say I still live at home. Um, Before I like just go out and rent somewhere, like if I'm gonna pay $1,000 a month, $700 a month rent, I may as well pay a mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the one thing.
So you
So
can
like
keep
if
the
something
money really.
exactly. So I'm trying to save money for that. Exactly. No, it's not like I'm putting a big chunk of change because I'm not going to do that next year. But it's one of those things that I definitely want to do. And then like on the grand scheme of thing for businesses, I would like to open up stores in other areas. I would like to try new product acquisitions. I don't know if you're familiar with rag houses,
No.
but it's basically where raw donations, like the red bins where people toss their stuff in, or the blue bins where you donate your old clothes. It's the factory or the place where they all go, and then it gets sorted and sold. So that would be like an eventually a goal of mine to own a rag house and be able to sort merchandise. Okay, like this could be sold at the vintage store. This could be sold at, let's say, if I had a thrift store. Something compared to like Plato's Closet, or something like that, Buffalo Exchange style. But yeah, those are just a few of the goals for the business.
That's dope.
Yeah,
Good luck
yeah.
on them. I can see you. You got a good head on your shoulders, man. You're young. You've
Oh,
worked
for
very hard.
sure.
So,
I'm
like,
I'm
good
trying,
luck on those for real.
dude. Thank you, thank you.
I got two last questions for you.
Yeah.
One is just advice, say for myself, or like, think about back to when you were in high school and there's a kid that kind of likes fashion and he maybe reselling stuff right now and he wants to take it more serious and he wants to be an entrepreneur, maybe be like you someday, open his own clothing store. What would you tell him?
Well, to be real, um, like if it's something you're extremely passionate about and it's something you love to do, like fuck what everyone else thinks. Because like there are people that told me to not do this, that it's not going to work out. But I truly believe like if you love something and you want to do something, like you'll make it happen, no matter what the situation is. Whether if you want to become good at a sport or run your own business, take the leap and and do it and do it while you're young, because the worst comes to worst is, hey, I failed, but guess what? I tried it. You don't want to look back in your 30s and your 40s and be like, damn, what would have happened if I would have started a business? I could have maybe done that. What if? You don't want to do that. Just you know stick to it. If that's what you love and that's what your passion is and that's what you think you want to do it. Don't be afraid to mess up, because guess what? Everyone makes mistakes. I've made mistakes. um and like I said, I've done multiple things. So I created my own clothing brand. That's not really my style anymore. I love sustainable fashion. It's trial and error to find what you want to do, but the number one thing you can do is explore all your options and do what makes you happy.
That's dope. And
Oh, for sure, for sure.
last question. It's a simple question, but a hard question because it's only one word answer. So you can only answer in one word, and it does not have to be all encompassing. It doesn't need to be everything that answers this question. It just has to be one example. And what is one thing that makes you appreciate being alive?
Family, hands down. Should I collaborate more, or just
No,
one
that's dope. Good.
okay, yeah.
Thank you for being on. When you
Yeah, of course, of course.
when you visit New York, let me know. And if
Yes,
I'm in town at the same
yes.
time, we'll get together, get
Hey,
a drink
sounds
or
good,
something.
man.